Hi everyone. I did not forget. I'm just trying to see where I'll capture the most people live. So welcome to tip number 15. Today's tip is about sunscreen. So how to choose the right sunscreen when you're in the store. So there's some things you should look for. Hi, Lindsay. You should look for sunscreen that are not chemically based, so mineral sunscreen. So something that has an active ingredient that looks like zinc oxide or titanium dioxide. Now, those two ingredients, they're mineral UVAs and UVB blockers, which is great. You want to make sure, hi Lene, you want to make sure that they're non-nanoparticles, which means the particles are not small enough to penetrate your skin. Some of them indicate it on the bottles, some don't. So you might have to ask the company, do a little bit of research to see what they use. But some things, so this is the first thing to look for, those two active ingredients. What you want to avoid are things, and I'm gonna post a little screenshot of what to avoid because I know I might say it differently. You might not know what I'm saying. You might not remember. So you want to avoid things like oxybenzone, octinoxate, octocrylines, I think it's another one. And then something, as usual, fragrance, that's a given. So I don't even need to mention it. But you also want to avoid something called retinol palmitate. The other ingredients that I named, they're actually endocrine disruptors. So they disturb your endocrine system, which mostly governs everything in all the functions of your body. So you want to avoid endocrine disruptors in general, but those are really present in sunscreen. The retinol palmitate, though, they did some research and discovered that retinol palmitate, which is vitamin A, in presence of sunlight, actually increases skin cancer lesion. So that was a study done in 2010, I think. It's still on the shelf, so I urge you to go and look at your SPF moisturizer, your SPF sunscreen, your regular moisturizer. It's in a lot of facial lotions, so you want to make sure that your sunscreen does not contain that, because really, to me, this is so, it's ironic, right? You put sunscreen, you usually go in the sun. You don't put sunscreen to stay in the house. Well, the sun activates the retinol palmitate and it accelerates skin cancer lesions. So this is definitely one that's eliminated from the start. I don't even look at it if I see that ingredient. So that's that. Another thing I wanted to mention about sunscreen is that really often we look for really high SPF, right? We're buying a false sense of security, of safety. An SPF 30, I think, lets through about 3% of the sun rays, where an SPF 50 lets about 2%, and an SPF 100 lets through 1%. So the difference is really minute, right? 1%, 2% max. But when you purchase the SPF 50, the SPF 100, you get a false sense of safety, and then you're more likely to stay in the sun or to wait until you reapply. So experts pretty much all agree that you should definitely not buy into that. You could use SPF 30 and reapply, and it would be great. You do not necessarily need to buy SPF 50 or SPF 100. So I know that's something people really, I felt like if I bought SPF 100, nothing was getting through, but it's actually not true. So other tips, do not use, and I know the moms are gonna be crying here, do not use spray sunscreen. That's a big no-no. Most of the sunscreens out there have all those endocrine disruptors and toxic chemicals when you spray them. So first, when you use spray sunscreen, and we do it because it's convenient, right? I did it too. When the kids were little and I didn't know any better, that's what I use. And it was so convenient, or so I was thinking. So I didn't know this, but when you spray the sunscreen, you're actually supposed to rub it in after. I just sprayed and told the kids to turn and then sprayed. No, you're actually supposed to spray it on your hands and then apply it to the skin, which defeats the purpose in my book. It's not easier for me to spray it and rub it in than to rub it in from a tube. So the other thing with the spray sunscreen, aside from the fact that we're not using it correctly, is that people, and mostly kids, are breathing in all those chemicals that are harmful. You can tell your kids to block their nose, to not breathe, but we all know that, you know, some stuff is going to get through anyway. So that's why it's important to avoid it. I know I broke the heart of many people. I was really sad too, because I thought, oh, it's so easy, just spray, turn, and we're all done. But no. So apply enough, okay? It takes a fairly large amount of sunscreen to be effective. I think they say at least like a 1 ounce glass. So that's for those of you we don't know, it's a shot glass. So it's a big amount of sunscreen to be effective. Reapply, it's really important. And then other tips that are not related to sunscreen, and I'm a huge fan. So wear protective clothing. There's a lot of companies now that do the rash guards, the t-shirts. You can find them in almost any stores. There's also companies that now do like fancier clothing. You can find cover-ups, you can find hats, you know, shorts and long sleeve shirts, and there's a whole new business there. But some stores that carry those that have a really wide selections are Lands' End. I used to buy them there. And one of my favorite store for protective clothing is Coolie Bar. So if anybody wants to know where to look that up, let me know and I'll just send you the website. But those carry a really large selection of protective clothing that dries really quickly if you go in the water, so it's great. And then just, you know, go under the umbrella. Don't stay full sun all day, every day. That's also, avoid the sun between 10 and 3 or 10 and 4 when it's really strong. But with those tips and the list I'm going to post about the chemicals to avoid in your sunscreen when you're shopping for it, don't forget, it's not on the list, but I said it in the video, retinol palmitate is something you should avoid in your sunscreen, because that really increases, studies have shown that it increases skin cancer lesion, and really who wants to take the risk when you can find alternatives without it. So that's my tip for today, and I will talk to you tomorrow.